Hey, good morning. And we have another episode of Check Me Out this morning. And this morning, I am very fortunate and happy to be talking to Jon Reed from Compostic. Welcome, Jon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, if we let's kick right into it. And so, Compostic is a Kiwi brand, and they are basically challenging all of the single-use plastics and plastic in general with their innovative brand. And they have a number of awesome products. I'm a massive fan of the sandwich bags. They are great because I haven't said, as I said earlier, I've got a 3.5-year-old. So we love using those bags. We're composters as well. So we like to take those bags and pop them in our compost. And I think it's just such a great idea and an awesome story to tell.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm always happy to hear that someone's a consumer and they love the product. So thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, can you tell us a little bit about Compostic, about the brand, and how you went from having this innovative idea to actually making it a reality?
Yeah, I will. I think it's a bit of a strange one for me because I have no background in anything that we do. I was never in FMCG. In fact, I've never worked with a product before. I was always in services. And I have no background in science. I have no background in engineering. And I wouldn't have called myself an environmentalist either. So it's been a strange journey, but a very interesting one, and there have been a lot of learnings along the way. Um, the the idea was born out of ignorance. Actually, I found myself in my mid 20s. Sadly, that's going back 6 or 7 years ago now. But I found myself in my mid 20s completely ignorant to the damage that plastic was causing to our environment. And I happened to have some friends who were in packaging, and as all good things start, we were sitting around having beer one day, and they were talking about how some of their clients in the packaging game were trying to look for alternatives to plastic. And in my naivety, I sort of said, "Why? Why would they want to move away from plastic? It's cheap. It's such a great like material from a functionality standpoint. Why would you ever want to move away from it?" And they said, "You're kidding me, right? This stuff takes 500 to 1,000 years to break down." And I said, "No, I didn't know that." And I guess I'd always assumed that something that was used in such incredible abundance, you can't look left and right without seeing plastic somewhere, surely wasn't being man-made on purpose, knowing that we were destroying our environment. For me, that felt so counterintuitive. And you only need to do the maths quickly and say, what's going to happen in 200 years when all of the plastic that we manufacture is still there? Where are we going to put it? We need an answer to some of these questions. And so that's what I did. I basically went around and tried to find some answers. I did some research on what other alternatives were available, why we weren't using them. And over an 18-month period, I quickly learned a lot about the industry and a lot of greenwashing that was going on. And eventually, I discovered this material that claimed to be compostable. And so I had some bags made out of it. And I brought them home to New Zealand. I did my shopping in them, 2 or 3 liters of milk in the bag, carried them home, and put it all away, and then put the bag in the compost. And over a 13-week period, I would take it out and see what was happening. In the 14th week, I was digging through the compost and I couldn't find anything. And I thought, this is the answer. Not only are we mimicking the convenience and functionality of plastic, which is so incredibly important to society these days, but at the end of its life, not only does it biodegrade and disappear, but it's also providing nutrients for the soil that then goes into my gardens to grow my crops. So, what better life cycle could you ask for? And that was really where we started the idea from. We quickly realized that the move away from plastics was being led by consumers, their voices on social media and through the media saying, hey, we can do better. And so we wanted to build products that consumers could have in their household, that they could make. It was a way for them to be able to make their own impact on the environment. And so we talked around, and a lot of people had these relationships with cling wrap and resealable bags where they loved the product, but they had that tinge of guilt every time they used it because it was made out of plastic. And so I wanted to develop using this compostable material. I wanted to develop those solutions for consumers, and I spent 3 years working with a couple of factories around the world trying to develop this product, and it didn't exist. So when we finally got there, this was the first of its kind. But it did take 3 years. Incredibly frustrating process, especially for someone with no background in science and engineering. But we were really determined to do it, and yeah, early 2020 we got there, and we've been on quite the journey since.
That's amazing. And I think for a lot of people, with consumers in particular, is that we see the end result. We go to the supermarket, we pick something up, and we don't realize before I even started on this journey, I would pick up a product and I would use it, and I wouldn't give any thought to the thought and the longevity it took to actually get there. And so 3 years is a long time to stick to something. Did you have any moments or challenges kind of where you thought, oh, am I doing the right thing here?
Oh, I mean, we still do. There's challenges every day, but yeah, absolutely through that 3 year period, especially because it's a commodity product, so it always comes out looking the same. But um, we were so keen to get the functionality really strong that just the smallest tweaks can take 3 to 6 months to change to make sure that product is ready for a consumer. So it was incredibly frustrating along the way. But I think for me, what drove me was that this would be a world first. This would be a world changing product. And so if we were able to push through the pain, there would be a lot of reward on the other side. Um, I've always wanted to do something new and innovative, and this just felt like the right opportunity. And I became so much more passionate through my learning of plastics and also composting and soil degradation and all these other crazy things that are going on in the world. It just felt too important to let go.
Oh, that's really cool. And I think that really, like you say, there's a mindset that's involved in coming up with these new innovative products, because I'm sure that right now there are a bunch of Kiwis out there, sitting in their garages or their kitchens with these kind of ideas, and thinking about, wow, how do I get it from this to actually being something? And you're right, it's the mindset really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think any idea can come into fruition. I would say one of actually my advantages was my limited background. And so I couldn't see all the barriers that were going to be in front of me. I was seeing them one by one. And once you get through the first one, you only see the next one and you go, okay, well, I'll just break that down, that barrier. And then 300 barriers later, you're there. But I just took it one by one. I didn't know all the intricacies of it. So, once you've got yourself in that mindset of I'm going to do this, then it's a matter of I can't back down. I can't back out now. I've come so far. So yeah, absolutely. I think determination is the number one thing for any founder who's looking to start a business. If you're determined to keep going and put everything on the line where other people aren't, you have a massive advantage.
Yeah, yeah. And what was it like getting that first? Obviously everyone goes through the process of having to, I guess, go and present to retailers. And what was that like going, hey, I've got this product. It's like a cling wrap, but it's compostable. And what was that feeling going in, like, oh my gosh, I've got this brand new thing and no one's ever seen it before. What was that like? And then, getting that first big order.
Well, it was interesting. I was taking people along our journey along the way. So as we got closer and closer to having a final product, I was already going into the supermarkets and pitching what we had as a prototype to say, this is where it's at. It's not quite there. We have these issues, but I'll be back in a couple of months to present the final product for you. So I had already sort of taken them on that journey to understand um, what the viability in the supermarkets would be like. So by the time we had the product, it was a lot easier to say it was, hey, Eureka, we've done it. We're ready now. It was a little bit easier from that front because we'd taken them on that journey. But again, I've got no background in this, right? So I'm just going in and having conversations. I have no idea how to present a pitch deck. or any of those sorts of things, or put it together, or what they want to hear. I'm just going in and having these open conversations. And I think I was fortunate enough in the early days that we had something that was so exciting. So the retailers were quite happy to help me through that process, which was
Yeah.
great. First orders for me wasn't anything special. I was kind of expecting it. The really special moment that put a tear to my eyes was um, the first time we were told that a product was picked up and scanned through the scanner and a consumer had purchased it. That was the biggest moment for me, and I must admit that was tear jerking. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. What a neat feeling that must be. And I'm sure you can kind of hold on to that feeling now as you should, and as it grows. And we were talking before we started recording about the late nights and the early mornings. And the different markets that you guys are now in the US and things like that. So what's that like uh dealing with these different markets, because each of them has their own sets of rules and their own
Mhm.
guidelines, but also the way that they like to be spoken to as consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the way I've always approached it is that you can do anything. Why can't a Kiwi brand do what other American brands are doing? Where we have a great product just like they do. Why shouldn't we be playing in their realm? So my approach, and I'm not saying it's the right one, is I tend to dive in head first because I feel like you learn best from experience, from actually doing, and from making those mistakes. And slowly you can make incremental changes to suit that local market. And look, at the end of the day, people are people. So dealing with people in America is not massively different from New Zealand or Australia. It's just a matter of, I guess, knocking on the door and getting in front of them and having really open conversations with them. In terms of the consumer, you're absolutely right. It's hard to gauge what resonates in New Zealand, whether that will resonate overseas. But I think it is a matter of um, doing some preparation before you go in terms of your market research and trying to understand that consumer in an overseas country. And that's all about talking to some people on the ground and also creating relationships. For me, it's all about creating relationships with other founders in the US, hitting them up on LinkedIn or getting introductions and having a conversation with them. What do you think about what we've done here? And what did you do to get over this hurdle? How would you present this to a supermarket, or how would you present this to a consumer to really make them understand? So again, I think it's just diving in head first, not putting more thought than is necessary into it. A little bit of upfront research, but a lot of it is just diving in and learning from your experiences and having the ability to change fast and be agile. That's your advantage as a small business.
Yeah, I am 100% on that train as well. I'd love to just kind of dive in and go, cool, yeah, sure, we can do that. Let's give it a go. And I think
Yeah,
that that's like a super exciting way to live life and in general live business, right? Is just try it and see what happens. So, and if you don't, I always like the phrase, what is it? You don't grow if you don't know.
that's right. I love that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
So when you think about where you are now and where you started from, were there any kind of visions that you had when you started Compostic that kind of ring true with where you are now, even if they were just like a dream or a little idea that you were like, I think I'd like to go there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had my eye on America from day one as a commercial market. I think they're the biggest users of single-use plastic. Like, it is astonishing the amount of single-use plastic that is used over there. So I always felt like that was a problem that we really wanted to solve, and it was a really exciting market for us. And to be honest, we didn't expect to be where we are as quick as we have. Um, Working with retailers like Whole Foods, we thought that might be more of a 5 year journey than sort of a 2.5, 3 year journey. So that's been fantastic. I think, as much as anything, the really interesting one for us has been how the industry has evolved in the last 3 years. Because when we first started this, the awareness around possible plastics was really, really small. And we expected again for that to take some time, but it's happened quite quickly. And the way in which people have got behind it has just been overwhelming. And then on the waste management side as well, there was a big risk for us because I always felt that the waste management side of things, in terms of taking our organic waste and composting it, had to evolve with us. But there's a risk that those industries won't, and that local governments or councils wouldn't get behind these things with legislation. And that's where I think it's changed, or it's gone beyond what my vision was faster. We always felt like it was logical. 45% of our waste at home is organic, can be composted, currently goes to an anaerobic landfill. And as it breaks down over numerous years instead of weeks, it releases methane gases, which are something like 32 times more potent than carbon dioxide to our atmosphere. So we knew that that industry needed to change, and that will provide a beautiful end of life solution for what we're doing. But I just didn't expect it to move this fast. Over the last 18 months, America has been introducing legislation around compost collection across the country, and now over 20% of households in America are under some sort of mandate for their home to compost. That's 70 million people, right?
Wow.
California have a composting law. New York are just putting it into action. There are 7 other states around the country that have said, no, you guys have to separate your organics, and we're going to take that to a composting facility. So that's where I felt our biggest risk was. Would logic prevail on that side of things? And if it did, then that was fantastic for us. And it seems to have, which has been incredible.
That's amazing. And obviously there had to be a certain amount of education to consumers in your marketing as well, and being really clear on what your message was and actually how the product works.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so we've always tried to work from 2 fronts. One is simplifying our message so that it's really easy for people to immediately pick up our concept. I think one of the major ones that we have on our packaging and all over our marketing piece is that our products break down faster than an orange peel. So for a consumer reading compostable, they might not know exactly what that means or how to distinguish that between some of the other products that are making claims on shelf. But the comparison to an orange peel that everybody knows is organic and everybody knows that it breaks down and it's not harmful to the environment, there's an immediate recognition of what our product stands for. On the other side of things, that's to draw in the consumer to say, here, pick it up and have a look at it, start using it, and then we provide the following education that's more detailed in the background to say, this is what the product is made out of, and this is what you're supposed to be doing with it. And did you know 45% of our waste is organic and we're not composting it? Have you thought about that before? And we've got a lot of consumer feedback from people who have purchased the product and said, you know what, I never even thought to compost before I bought your product. And your product inspired me to go and get a bin or put something in the backyard and start composting at home. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. And that's the kind of impact that we wanted to have. So there's a long way to go in terms of education, but we're working hard on it. And we need support from local agencies and councils and governments to really start getting behind this and making the movement real, because there's a huge opportunity in our generation, I believe, to eliminate plastics entirely and to create a whole new waste management system and also a supply chain for agriculture, because at the end of compost, you get this wonderful resource that means we don't have to use artificial fertilizers anymore. We get much higher quality topsoil, and that means we get more high quality feed and all these other things. So, yeah.
Yeah, it really is a no-brainer. And that's the thing that I really love the most probably about your brand and your product is like I've always been really interested in changing consumer behavior. And it doesn't happen overnight. It certainly is a long road to changing the way that we do things and all that. But I love the fact that there are people like you guys out there who are really, really, leading a change for that. So that's really awesome. And look, lastly, is there any little bits of advice that you might give to those people we were talking about earlier that are out there with these ideas and these products, to just go for it?
Yeah, I think you've probably heard me
Yeah.
say it along the way is if you've got a idea, you have to go for it. You have to at least start by the way that I did it worked for me is just break down one barrier at a time. What's the first step you need to take? Once you've broken down that first barrier and you've got that first win, what's the next one? And just take it piece by piece until you get there because nobody goes and has a steak and swallows it whole. We cut off a piece and we chew it and we get on to the next one. That's how you get through it, right? And I think it's just taking that first step, just jumping in and having a go. And then I've always said to anybody who's got their own business or is thinking of their own idea, the other thing is going to be that mental strength and determination because you're going to want to quit once or twice a week. I can guarantee you, at least for the first 2 or 3 years, and
Yeah.
you've just got to stay in there. It really is. I believe a lot of it is who can last the longest. Who's got that mental strength to continue and keep following in the pathway they're headed and not get pushed back by all of the issues and problems they're having to solve. Just keep pushing on, keep pushing on. Surround yourself with good people. Make sure you're asking for help. Don't be afraid to look stupid or answer wrong. Ask for help and dive in from your mistakes. I think this would probably be my key piece of advice.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, Jon, this has been such a great end to my week. What a wonderful chat this morning. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.